Hello everyone, welcome back to Autistic Assemble. And today is going to be a really cool conversation with Matilda. And yeah, it's going to be a really cool conversation about autism and just Matilda's journey, really. So Matilda, it's great to have you on the podcast today. Would you mind doing a little introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. It's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me on. So I'm Matilda. I am an advocate for both autism and cerebral palsy, which is my primary diagnosis. And yeah, I would say I'm relatively late diagnosed. Obviously, I'm a female, which makes things a bit more complicated. If you're, looking to get diagnosed.
Yeah,
And yeah, when I was diagnosed, I decided to become an advocate for autism because I felt like it's so, like, there are so many myths about it, and society's perception overall is warped. Like, mine was warped until my mum suggested to me that I might be autistic because, yeah, um so it kind of just made me want to learn more about neurodivergency and autism so I could help others going through the same thing. And I've branched out on social media and found kind of a neurodivergent community where we all share our stories and, exchange knowledge.
yeah, yeah. It's very good. Like it's like that, isn't it? Like there's so many people out there with like who are neurodivergent. And like you say, there's lots to learn about, and probably stuff we don't even know. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, neurodivergency is just the whole, like, topic. There's just so much to learn, and like you said, there's stuff that we don't know. Psychologists are still learning, still finding things out, and hopefully in the next decade or so we'll have a lot more information, and the language we're using to talk about these people and these traits might even change.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much. Everything's always changing. Like every so often. Um, like we have more knowledge now than we did 20 years ago, and probably 20 years later to now we have more knowledge than we do now. So it's always like
Yeah,
changing.
yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. So what like when was you diagnosed with autism, Matilda?
Oh, it was a month before my 17th birthday. Yeah. Um, my mum kind of knew from when I was 2, but then got my pediatrician kind of dismissed her because she was reluctant to diagnose me, obviously, because diagnosing is a huge process, but also because with cerebral palsy it's what you call a differential diagnosis. So some traits with cerebral palsy may overlap with autism, for example, like sensory issues or like processing delay. And so she just said, "Oh no." And also the whole like thing with me having meltdowns, she said that that was my frustration manifesting because of my impaired mobility rather than, sensory overload or routine harassment or yeah. But then we kind of just had it, on in the background for a bit, and then it became apparent from the ages of 14 to 16 I really struggled with my mental health as a result of bullying and, struggled with my relationships. And then it became clear. So yeah, I got diagnosed at 17. It was actually because I developed, when was it, like 14? When I was 14, I developed anorexia, and I didn't realize now that it's actually quite common for autistic individuals, particularly females, to develop eating disorders. And so, and also when you're, because obviously your brain is starving, you kind of your mentality kind of becomes quite like an autistic person in terms of your rigid thinking. And my eating disorder therapist, she picked up on it and then referred me to my GP because she would like tell me to do something and she'd be like, no, you have to eat the food. And I'd be like, no, I don't. This food is bad, even though I knew rationally that, what I was doing was like, I knew in somewhere in my head that like that I was, but it basically damaging my body and it wasn't good and that it was irrational, but it was I kind of personified my because we realized that actually that's not Matilda who's acting that way. That's the anorexia. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting because I didn't know that. I didn't know like I think it's not the only one like anorexia. I found that chronic illness and certain things with that have been linked into it as well, like with people
Yeah.
who are neurodivergent. So it is getting more common now.
Yeah,
But
like EDS and I've been do like yeah, chronic illness and also like depression, anxiety. It's like they're not like because autism isn't a mental health disorder. It's just I feel like you're more prone to mental health disorders because a profile with an an autistic profile with females, women can actually get misdiagnosed as bipolar, which I didn't realize. It's really interesting because the fact, and for an autistic person, I think the thing I struggle with the most is like navigating emotions and regulating them, and also mood swings, and obviously that overlaps with bipolar disorder. So
yeah,
psychiatrists just see that and think, oh, that's what it is.
yeah. So many things can get misdiagnosed and not looked at maybe properly. Um, because I guess some symptoms are very similar to other things. So
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, it is.
yeah. And if you've already got a disability, if you've already got one, then it's hard to get the diagnosis of another one because they, as I say, it's a differential diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it's very hard to get diagnosed with anything initially, but to get diagnosed more than one, that does complicate things a little bit.
Yeah, the process, shouldn't be so difficult. You shouldn't have to prove so many things. You shouldn't have to pay. You shouldn't have to, you know, all children do that. You're overreacting, and like, it's just like, oh, you know,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's hard, like um, I found more now with autism, a lot of people do get more diagnosed maybe later on. Um, um, like like as an adult or stuff like that. A little bit older. Than not like getting diagnosed maybe when you were like really young. Which is interesting because like a lot of it is just like you said, like a lot of the research has changed now. So but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and like certain kind of celebrities have been in the media saying like, well, all this, you know, autism, ADHD stuff, the world's gone mad, everyone needs to have something now, a disability, an illness, a label, and but people think that it's like people, that it's like a thing that's just kind of come out, and it's like, no, neurodivergency just naturally occurs amongst the human race. It's just that the criteria for it has expanded, and we have more understanding, and it's recognized now, and it's a good thing that people are receiving diagnoses, or like they feel like they can verbalize that they think they might be neurodivergent.
Yeah, definitely.
People say, oh well, they're making it up, and I was like, if you knew how much neurodivergent people struggle and how much how much trouble they have getting a diagnosis, then you wouldn't say that, because it's just like, why would you make something as big and important and debilitating as not having your support needs met?
Mm, yeah, right. It
It's
is
just like,
crazy when people say that.
yeah,
Yeah, because why would you make it like you're not going to make something up? Really, that serious?
yeah,
Yeah. Um, but
yeah,
but yeah, it's like it is. It's hard, I guess, once you get diagnosed with anything, whatever you get diagnosed with, well, whenever you get diagnosed with it. But I think it just takes time to just get used to it and see people in the community and see how
yeah.
people can fit in.
Yeah, I think it's overall it's a good thing. People might be like, well, why do you want to label yourself? And it's like, I'm not labeling myself, because I've probably been called worse labels than my diagnosis, like, oh, you're just lazy, or, rude, or so then you can finally be like, oh, that's what it is, it's not my fault. But then you can join a community and, hopefully get the support that you need and kind of navigate things better. But some people, it can be a bit nerve-wracking, kind of knowing how to tell people. Um, because you kind of like, people like, congratulations, that's a good thing, because sometimes people can be like, oh, I'm really sorry, that's bad. And I'm like, but it's actually a good thing, because I've always been autistic, but now I know that I'm autistic, then I don't have to struggle anymore and beat myself up for things that aren't my fault, you know?
Yeah, that's completely it. You can try and get some support that maybe you didn't get before you was diagnosed. But I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Just to
Yeah,
find out why you do certain things, or why you may struggle with certain things, or why you're very good at certain things. But it is good to have. It is good to have.
yeah. And it's kind of someone's choice whether they use person first language or identity first language.
Mm,
For me, I use identity first language because I I don't think I can detach myself from my disabilities, and it's an important part of who I am. But some people might prefer to use person first language because they don't want their disability to be their master status, and that's fine. Everyone will have different ways that they, you know,
mm,
perceive their disability, and how they want to portray themselves, and that's fine. I can't say to another autistic person, well, you should use this language, you should be like this.
yeah.
Some people would say that autism is a condition. Some people would say it's a disorder, and some people don't like that term, but some people who, you know, have medium to support needs that they feel do kind of you know, not not all of the autistic community, but some people do feel like they have needs that debilitate them, so they
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I agree. Like I stumbled across that recently, and I guess you have to see both sides, like of like what autism is to everyone. Like you say, everyone's gonna have a different view what autism is to them, and like you say, you need maybe extra help about certain things. Um, like I don't. I'd rather just I rather if I do use like a word of disorder or disability, I'd rather use disability than disorder from my opinion. But everyone's gonna be different. Like
Yeah.
really, it's just personal for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't use the term Asperger's because Asperger's stopped being an official diagnosis in 2013, but some people who were diagnosed before 2013, that was their original diagnosis, and that, you know, if they want to still use that, that's fine. I think it's more of the connotations around it, like there's this thing in the autistic community called Asperger's like supremacy, where you know, those with Asperger's, because it's kind of, people have this idea that, again, a term that I don't like, but like they're savants and intelligent and gifted, and so it's like they're seen as kind of more um valuable than the rest of the autistic community, which I don't agree with, you know.
Mm,
I
yeah.
think that everyone, you know, it's not a competition, how autistic you are, you know, you're valid no matter what your issues. If you don't have learning difficulties, if you know, if your disability is kind of invisible or visible, you're still valid, and you know, you're still autistic, and you can't say to someone, well, you're not autistic, and oh, you know, you've become more autistic since you were diagnosed, because
Mm,
you know that's not
yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone deserves to own that, to own a part of their identity and to feel, you know, comfortable with it.
You do. Yeah. Like everyone
Yeah,
has different views of
yeah,
who they identify as, and like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like I realized, like I'm probably more like I was in primary school than I was in secondary school, because in primary school I didn't really feel the need to mask that much, even though I was kind of that kind of like misunderstood kid where I have meltdowns and they thought I was having tantrums, or you know, I used to do this stim with my hands where I'd like press them together to make this kind of popping sound, and the teachers would be like,
Um.
no, Matilda, that's distracting. But you know, I don't know, I didn't feel the need to mask because I had friends then, because I don't know, it was just a lot easier when as a child kind of that age, you don't really have much of, you don't have a lot of self-awareness, and then at secondary school I suddenly felt a massive need to mask, and I also struggled with the kind of cerebral palsy aspect of my identity, because obviously that meant that I already had support needs. Only now really that I realised that I've just, my whole personality changed, and I wasn't myself then, but I'm, you know, because I was masking full time, but I'm realizing now who I am through the amazing people that I've met over the past couple of years that have allowed me to realize that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes time, I guess, to how you want to be like I seen. Um. like how you want to be called, like and stuff like that. But it's good that you've made some good friends because it is good. Like over the years I have too. Like you can meet so many good people in the community that just understand you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you have like neurodivergent friends, no one's gonna look at you weird if you're stimming or if you wear ear defenders, you know, like I encourage my autistic friends who have been self-conscious of that. I encourage them and you know, we encourage each other. Like I I have this like Jellycat soft toy in my bed called Jerry, who's a giraffe, and I've had him since I was like
Oh,
one. But at secondary school, for some reason, I was like, oh, it's really juvenile to have stuffed toys, you know. And then I banished him into my wardrobe, and I was like, oh, why did I do that? Like that's so mean. Like he's been my comfort item since I was like a baby, and what does it matter if people think that it's juvenile, you know? Like it's really, you know, pacifying for me to have him in bed with me, and I like to like sniff him as a stim because I find his smell really soothing. And then I was like, you know, well, my friends have stopped. So
yeah, yeah. That is that is very good because like yeah, it doesn't matter how old you are to have like maybe a soft toy or a teddy. Like I have that. I have a main teddy since I was, how old was I? Really young. Probably not that long since after I was diagnosed with autism. Right, and I collect plushies, teddies all the time, and
yeah,
it's just one of those things. Like um. I would be kind of probably scared to go out with it. Like I would take it to places, but maybe like on holidays, but I wouldn't go out in the public maybe and just carry it or something like that. Unless I won something out on machine, maybe I would then. But but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think I don't take mine out with me not because I'm self-conscious, but because I get scared that they'd get lost.
mm,
Um, but I would like to, you know, it's kind of a love language between me and my friends because I would like to, you know, bring them in and let my friends hold them. Like, because another one of my friends, they have cuddly toys and their love language is like letting you hold them and stuff. And yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's good. It is good to have teddies because they are awesome, aren't they? Teddies for
Yeah,
children.
and they help with so many things like emotional regulation, sleep, and I'm like, why did I allow myself to give up such a, you know, a position that means so much to me?
Yeah, yeah. That they are. Very, I say they're precious because they are like you maybe get attached to that one particular one, even though you might have a few others, but um you might have that one particular you might have that one particular teddy that you just want it, and you at one point you might have been maybe ashamed to have it, but maybe it is good to have like sensory as a sensory kind of toy as well. So it is cool.
Yeah, and I think if you've got, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, no.
Yeah, I think if you've got friends who kind of have similar interests who also use STEM tools or have cuddly toys or kind of special interests, then that kind of like reduces the stigma and you know like another thing is like special interest in info dumping. Like you feel like guilty in it, you know, for info dumping on someone because you kind of think, well, you know, they're not interested or I'm just rambling on about the same thing. But for me, I actually really like it when like my friends info dump on me because I can tell that they're really happy and they obviously felt comfortable around me enough to info dump, and like I can see in their voice, and like I can hear in their voice and see in their gestures that they are really excited and they shriek when they talk about them, and that makes me really happy that something like that gives them so much joy and they can share it with me. I feel privileged.
Yeah, that it is good to info dump.
Yeah.
Like I do it sometimes, and it is good just talking about maybe a particular topic that you're really interested in, and yeah, it is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Really.
And even though, because when I feel emotions, I feel them really strongly, which isn't that great for negative emotions, and obviously, like it can be really, really hard for me to navigate my emotions with meltdowns. But I love the joy I get from, you know, one might say trivial things, which, maybe like, oh, why are you excited about that? Why did you just scream with joy because someone put a cup of coffee in front of you? But I'm just like, I'm happy, and I just, the joy I get from little small things like that, it just, it's just like I can just think of that moment and just revive the joy that I felt from that moment. And yeah.
Yeah, that is good. That like it just makes people aware that they are good. That they are like really important. Just to I guess cherish the little moments that you get, like having a cup of coffee.
Yeah, but yeah, it it's um I think it kind of teaches other people and neurotypical people that they should be thankful for small things as well. And
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
but they can't really, I think it's hard to empathize with um a neurodivergent person because they are living with a different neurological reality. So if they might feel things like different to you, like obviously their senses are different and the way they process is different, and they might have it's irrational, or silly, it's rational to them, and you need to respect that.
You do. Yeah, you've got to just respect it. I think respect is a big word. Um, but yeah, it's very important. Very important. Like what did you, Matilda? So sure. Like how soon after your diagnosis did you kind of decide that you wanted to be like an advocate for autism and stuff?
It was pretty soon after, so I kind of I decided I wanted to learn more about my condition and kind of reframe my perspective, because before I was like, I read the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime and thought that was a good representation of an autistic person, and so I kind of just wanted to reframe my perspective. So I went out, bought some books that were all by actually autistic female authors and read them, and then I started relating to them and being like, oh yeah, so that's an autistic trait. Oh yeah, I have that. I have that. Um, and then it kind of just started from there. I started college. I found some friends that were also autistic. I guess in a way I'd kind of always been connected to the world of disability because I'm cerebral palsic as well. But I haven't always been so proud of being cerebral palsic, and then I just decided, I finished secondary school, this is my chance to kind of reinvent myself and
Yeah.
you know, learn. My autism diagnosis was really like, you know, I it's not my fault that I have sensory differences or emotional regulation difficulties, or you know, and this anorexia isn't getting me anywhere, you know, it's just getting in the way of all my other priorities and making my relationships dysfunctional, you know. I need to kind of stop this and be kinder to myself.
Yeah. Good. That's the most important thing. You got to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm sensory too, so like I get affected by maybe little kind of sound. Like so, say let's say maybe someone's eating on their plate, and that's like a chalkboard to me. And like if they eating loudly, so not so maybe a load of people in the room, but more so if it was just maybe like maybe three, and then one person just backing their plate eating really loud. That kind of affects me sensory wise.
Yeah, and for other people, like they'll be like, oh, you know, it's not that annoying, it's not that loud, but for you, it's amplified, and they don't know because they're not inside your brain.
Yeah.
So it's very annoying when people always like invalidate your, you know, what you're going through just because it's not what they're going.
Yeah, yeah. Got to be careful who you tell sometimes, because if you tell them they know it annoys you, they'll do it more just to make it annoy you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's when you realize that those aren't good people. Like, you know, with bullying, they just keep doing the same thing and, you know, saying, oh, but you're hurting my feelings. It's like that. You have that, you know, won't do it. So it's like I have a strong startle reflex, so I jump like at stuff really easily. Like even if someone says my name suddenly or like makes a makes a sudden movement towards me, I will jump. And some people, you know, they might find it funny, or, you know, or they might like laugh or like mick me, but it's kind of like it's okay to laugh in some situations, like because my friend has it as well. So then they'll say hi, and then I'll jump, and then they'll jump, and then they'll laugh. But that it's okay if you're laughing with the person, not at the person. But I'd
yeah,
rather, or some people might feel quite embarrassed because they don't know how to act. When I've just like jumped, but I'd rather that they just kind of ignored it and just moved on because it's just part of, you know, who I am. Like if you spend time with me, you'll just realize that I have a strong startle reflex, and you know, that's just you can't really help that. You're probably going to trigger it sooner or later.
yeah. Definitely, I couldn't agree more. But yes, it affects everyone differently, and um, so like yeah. Would you like to talk a little bit about your cerebral palsy, Matilda, a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. So yeah, like what it is or how it affects
Yeah.
me, or
Yeah, maybe start off with what it is.
so cerebral palsy is a neurological non-progressive condition that affects mobility, manual dexterity, um yeah, and it's you people mostly associate it with them because so when I was growing in my mom's uterus, my mom got a disease that, yeah, basically, so it's damage to the brain, so and there are varying and it can affect like different things. So for me it means that I am a wheelchair user and it affects all four of my limbs, so I'm quadriplegic, and I have the spastic kind, which means that my muscle tone is quite stiff. Yeah, but there are different kind of things that it can affect. So some people may be non-verbal, or have like involuntary movements, or they can kind of you can get the dyskinetic type of cerebral palsy, which means you fluctuate between kind of a floppy and a stiff tone, but yeah, or ataxia, which is where you just like shaky or wobbly, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And so, was you born with 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 it, Matilda?
yeah, so you can't it's not something that you really develop. You can some babies can have you can get it from meningitis or open heart surgery. But for me, yeah, it was in the uterus, and we kind of know that it was before birth because
Mm,
I didn't have a traumatic birth. Like I wasn't stuck. I kind of that kind of eliminated what the cause was, but um we didn't find out like how I was brain damaged until I had a MRI scan when I was about 8 on
mhm.
my brain. But to be honest, I don't think the cause is that like important. Some people might want to know the cause so they can kind of sue the hospital for medical negligence, but yeah, for me it wasn't the case, so yeah. But that's an important myth to clear up, is that you're just yeah, it's something that you're born with, so you can't get it, and it's not genetic also because it happens at birth. So say
Yeah,
if I say if I had a baby, it wouldn't there'd be no chance that it would have that they'd be cerebral palsic as well, unless they had a similar brain injury to me at
okay,
birth or in the uterus. Yeah.
okay, okay. That is very interesting. To hear, but it seems you do really well, like with raising awareness for it and autism. So you do good work with both.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like cerebral palsy people maybe as opposed to other disabilities wouldn't really like know a lot about it, or they may not have heard of it, but and then I feel like well more people know about autism, but then I'm like, but do they actually know really what autism is? Because I feel like if people met me and they didn't know, like if people knew the like if they had a broad understanding of like autistic traits, like I've told people, like even people who work with autistic people, and they're like, that's strange, you're not autistic, because for some people I might act in a very like stereotypically like non-autistic way. Like I'm very gregarious, as you can tell. I can understand rhetorical techniques.
Yeah,
I'm not really good at maths, but I'm really good at English, and I really love like tactile contact. So, someone might be like, oh, but those aren't epithets of autism. But yeah. So I kind of on my Instagram account I try and kind of have equal space for cerebral palsy and autism, but sometimes they do overlap. So I think in one post it'd be easier to just talk about both.
yeah. That is the best way. It saves time as well, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, it saves a bit of time. But yeah, it's good. It's good because like you say, like you find a lot of people who are autistic have got something else, some maybe other a lot of sort of stuff as well as the autism. So um, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It it's more kind of common, the kind of dual diagnosis, than you realise. And yeah, as you say, it's actually more rare than you think for someone to just be autistic, because it just um and cerebral palsy and autism are both neurological, so it's more like the probability goes up, if you will, of you having uh, what um what caused me to be autistic. But I wonder, like, if I wasn't cerebral palsic, would I be autistic? Because we we recently found out that I do have an aunt who's autistic, but we don't think it's genetic, as it because autism is, hereditary, but we don't, it it's just very interesting.
yeah, it is interesting. It is really interesting. How we end up with these things, but and then I guess the gain of having certain things is that you gain good friendships with people that have that too. So it's
Yeah.
I think that's I would say that's the highlight of it all.
Yeah, I have friends who are like, neurodivergent in loads of ways, like dyspraxic,
mm,
OCD, Tourette's, like FND, which I'm trying to learn more about, because I feel like I'm quite ignorant. I've got this long-term mission to be less ignorant about um stuff, because, for me, I find it upsetting when people are ignorant about my disabilities. So I feel like, everyone feels like that, and everyone gets tired of having to explain the same things over and over again. So if I can learn more, and how to interact with people better,
yeah,
who may belong to certain social groups, then that makes me a better person,
yeah,
and that makes it easier for them.
definitely. Definitely, I couldn't agree more, and it's also important to share this story because especially like in school, maybe school experience, or and stuff like that is like it's good to share because because bullying is kind of thing that happens a lot with people who are on the spectrum, so it's good to
Yeah.
share your journey because it can help people.
Yeah. If you were bullied, when you were bullied, was that before or after you were diagnosed as autistic?
Mm, I think both.
Or both? Yeah.
Yeah, I think both.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of, yeah. Sorry. I wonder if having an autism diagnosis would have helped me more at school, because I feel like it would have done with some things, but then they would have been like, maybe, oh, well, you're just using your autism as an excuse, or,
mm,
maybe you took that literally when we were being figurative, or they'd be like, well, we have loads of autistic students and you're not like them, they just constantly compare me to the autistic students, to the other autistic students, which they already did when I was, you know,
mm,
um, when being cerebral palsic, they just always used to compare me to students who, were disabled, like not cerebral palsic, but they used to like compare me in terms of like physical ability with students who are learning disabled, and I was like, that's not fair. Yeah, because you know we have completely different support
mm,
needs, and our
mm,
disabilities affect us in different ways.
yeah, yeah. Does that won't make a lot of sense because the whole point is not to be the same, and I wouldn't want anyone to. We wouldn't want anyone to be the same. Otherwise, you drive us mad.
Yeah. I feel like also people have that kind of arrogance, like, well, oh well, I know about with one student doesn't mean that they're gonna be the same, it's you've still got stuff to learn, and so it means a lot to me when teachers or learning support assistants actually want to educate themselves and actually admit when they've said something like mildly ableist, because it means to like it shows that they're learning and that they're kind of you know they're not kind of scared to accept when they've done something wrong.
Yeah, that's completely it. That's completely it, because it I think being honest is the most important thing. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, they say learners need to be flexible, and I think teachers need to be flexible as well, because I
Mm.
feel like, especially with, something as prevalent as autism, teachers are going to teach like like loads of autistic students throughout their time in teaching, and like neurodivergent students. I went to like this poetry thing at my college the other day, and it just so happened that the poet who came, who was an ex-student, was had Tourette's. So
Okay.
I was like, oh cool, you're neurodivergent, and they were like, yeah, you get me.
Mm.
And I think some teachers, depending on, how long they've been, I actually think teachers who have been teaching for a long time, they are more likely to have like um better experience and better attitudes because they're used to student diversity, that I mean that's not always the case, because some people have, they start if they're new, they can have fresher attitudes, and you do get people who've been teaching for a long time who are like, or thinking about perspectives and like, I know, but I feel like you're just gonna, you know, you're just gonna teach in your divergent student at some point, so you need to be ready and you need to learn about it so that you can better support them.
Definitely, and you always got to come across people who are neurodivergent in any kind of place, or you should, and it should be that way, really. But
Yeah.
what happened when I actually got bullied when I was at school, and this was at primary school, is I would go to a teacher and tell them also near enough a lot of the time, and then they would end up be saying, "Have you heard of the boy who cried wolf?" And bring that into it, and then no, and then which is why people don't maybe tell teachers, because they don't take it as seriously, and I think they should be observing more, especially when I went to school. I don't know how it is now, but it would
No.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's similar, and it's kind of like, why are they, if you say that to them, like, they're just gonna not tell anyone when something really happens. And then it's like, people say, like, the teacher said, well, if they were struggling, then why didn't they just ask me? And I was like, because they asked you, or they asked another teacher in the past, and this is what they said.
yeah, yeah,
So
and
it's like, I am being bullied, please listen to me.
yeah. Because bullies are very clever how they go about things, and they can make it like that they haven't done anything wrong very easily to a teacher. Um,
Yeah, it's very, very subtle.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and it's very hard when I've been in that situation where, oh well, it's all in the past, but it's
mm,
weird how certain things can just unexpectedly trigger it, and and it's still, I feel like my experiences of school pretty much dictate a lot of my behaviors today, and I'm reminded like, oh, I wouldn't like to feel like that or do that, but that's just, what I've learned and what I've internalized.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like I apologize a lot, and my teachers now or just anyone now is like, it's okay, you don't need to apologize, but I'm just so used to feeling like an inconvenience, my internalized ableism, the neurodivergent guilt of like, oh, you know, um this thing like isn't accessible, or am I holding people up because I can't move fast enough, being in a wheelchair, or oh, I had a meltdown in front of a teacher and they shouted at me and they just wanted me to stop, like, oh, I'm being so difficult, and
yeah,
that just becomes an automatic response before I can stop it.
yeah. It is tough. It is tough to talk to anyone nowadays.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, you need to be careful when you talk to someone because you don't know what past experience they've had, and I'm actually quite a sensitive person, but I come across as confident, and I am kind of confident in some ways, like in an academic sense, but I have had experiences which may affect how I react to people to be gentle with me.
yeah. Yeah. I think we all have that maybe people do have that kind of way about them. Like you want to act maybe sometimes confident around certain things, maybe you're not. But it's always important to. I was like that. Like when I was younger, I was not confident really, but I guess we gain it about certain things, and then like you said, like about maths and English. Like I'm not too good at maths either, so you're not on your own. But um,
Yeah,
but it's just one of those things.
yeah, like um sorry, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Yeah. But maybe moving on, Matilda. Do you want to talk? What are your hobbies? Like, do you have any hobbies, like, or anything?
Oh yeah, so um I really like writing, so I want to go on to do a creative writing degree and become an author or screenwriter, so I can continue kind of advocating for disability in the media, because I still feel like that's, you know you rarely kind of see disability in mainstream media, and when you do, it's often outdated, like it's often um created by like non-disabled people, and like, you know it's a lot of pity porn, like the like telethons that are held for us,
Yeah.
and for me, like the media, like like the media's portrayal of autism was what is particularly damaging to me, because it's one of the reasons why I thought I can be autistic, because I read the Curious Incident, you know, um,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, people still read that book, and it's been turned into a play, and I just feel like, when I say, the noun autism to someone, they're like, oh, that means that someone's socially inept and emotionless, or like either really talented or, has severe learning disabilities. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get to do that because I think it's really important as well. The portrayal about autism does need to change. Um,
Yeah,
what people think of it and stuff like that. So it's good that you want to do that.
yeah. I really like socializing and trying new things as well. Like spending time with my friends, and yeah, I like to try a lot of different activities.
That's good.
Um,
Yeah. It's
and
good.
I like to like read and analyze plays because I find kind of like different interpretations very interesting, and for me, literature puts like allows you to explore concepts in a very abstract way, and it's also like analogies are a great way for me to like describe my emotions,
Hmm.
which again some people might, because there are some people who think, well, you know, autistic people can't understand metaphors or sarcasm, and it's like that might be true for some autistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with sarcasm, everyone's different. Like when I was younger, sarcasm, I didn't really get it. I got easily offended, but now I can more understand it. Um, where like not everyone's different. Like sometimes everyone's not going to change. But
Yeah.
yeah, sarcasm is kind of a big thing.
Yeah. But do you think that people would say, "Oh, I'm being sarcastic" to kind of get away with actually being mean to you, or do you think they were
Mm,
genuinely just being innocent? Because sometimes people can bully you and then say really mean things and then say, "Oh, well, it was just a bit of banter."
oh yeah, yeah, they do, don't they? Yeah, it's hard to notice, isn't it? Like where are they joking? Like are they not? It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you can. I guess it's their tone of voice, perhaps.
yeah.
How are they saying it?
But then again, I feel like for a lot of autistic people, it's kind of a game that they have to play. It's a process of elimination because they have to focus on, we have to focus on so many more things like eye contact or posture or looking like we're interested. You know,
Mm.
and it's hard. Or like sometimes I'll say something sarcastically, but then I'll say it in a really serious voice, or I like to use self-deprecating humor a lot, which a lot of people don't get and think that I'm being genuinely down on myself. Like I like forget to do something or do it wrong, and then I'll be like, "Oh, I'm so stupid," laugh, and then they'll be like, "No, don't say that," and I'll be like,
Mm.
"It's okay, I was being self-deprecating," you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's
And
good.
the disabled person leads the joke because it shows that, that person is comfortable around disability.
Yeah, I think with jokes, everyone takes them differently, and everyone's gonna have a different sense of humor. So
Yeah,
it's good.
yeah,
It's like certain things will, certain
yeah,
things won't.
yeah. But it's really nice because me and my best friend, or like we have the the same sense of humor, and the way that we make each other laugh is kind of quite weird. Like we like to script like real life situations, like stuff that has actually happened to us that we just found retrospectively we found really funny, and we just like to like it text them, like we just like to like script everything, like, this is what I said, this is what they said, this is, the stage directions, and for some people they'd be like, "Oh, why are you laughing at that?" But for us we just like laugh at that for ages.
Yeah,
And I feel like a lot of the times when we just hang out together, like people who are, kind of in the background, like teachers, they might think that we're being a bit weird or that we're being genuine when we're not. But we did, we try not to really care anymore because we're like, oh well, at least we're happy,
yeah, that's the
and
main
no
thing.
one's like, no one's like that disturbed.
That is that's it. That is the main thing, really. just so you're happy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But last few things, Matilda, before we finish, like, do you have any advice for like other people who are autistic, or anything?
I would say that just try a person who you can fully unmask in front of, and because that's just so important. If you try and find out what your special interests and really channel those and really delve deep into those, because those will help you and be coping mechanisms for you, and you'll find that you're not alone, and you don't have to kind of struggle in the silence. There are people like you, and you will be able to find who you are, because it's not easy to just unmask. Masking kind of becomes so instinctive when you're autistic. You can kind of lose track of who you are, but just experiment with your autistic self, and you don't have to kind of stick with your feelings around being autistic might change, and that's okay, and don't beat yourself up about it. Like, you might have internalized ableism that you want to overcome. You might want to use identity first, but then person first language. It's completely up to you. No one can tell you like this is how you define yourself, because that's up to you.
That's completely right. It is up to you how you want to go about things. But I definitely agree. Like, delve into your like interest and just talk about it forever. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you will find people that are interested. I promise you, you can find, pretty much anyone on social media. So you can find people who have similar special interests to you. Like me and my best friend, I have this thing that I've had pretty much ever since playgroup, where I get hyperfixated thing. And then I met my best friend at college, and they're like, oh my god, I have the exact same thing. I email one of my old secondary school teachers like once a month, and I'm like, wow, like I just thought I was a weird but I'm not. There's someone else like me out there, which is very like reassuring for me, and
yeah, it's, it's
self-affirming.
it's good to find people that have similar interests in their life, is writing, looking at plays like you said, or just anything else, because it's just really interesting to hear. But
Yeah.
it's all good fun. It's all good fun. But I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed coming on the podcast, Matilda, and
I did
everything.
it. Thank you for hosting and having me. And yeah, it's been a fun night. Let me know. Is it 2nd of April that you're launching?
Well, this will go out then. Yeah. As we're recording, we are in February at the moment. So yeah, when people are listening now, this will already be out. But for us, we got to wait to the future. So yeah, at some point in April, this episode will be out. Which
Yeah. Thank you for listening,
yeah, thank you to
wherever
everyone
you
for
are.
thank you to everyone
Kind people.
listening, and
Yeah.
it's been really awesome. And thank you, Matilda. Thanks for everyone listening and everything. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode. But thank you again, Matilda.
Thank you. Bye.